Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a Polaroid collage using GIMP 2.10. So if I open up this folder, I've got an example here and we're going to be creating something like this. So I've downloaded all of these different images from Unsplash. There's a website where you can download free images and use them for whatever sort of projects you want to work on. So first thing I want to do is show you how to download the images. I've got 20 in total here, so I've got all of these 20 images. I'm not going to show you how to download all of them, but I'll show you a quick example how to download one, then I'll put links in the YouTube description to all of the images. So here's one example. Let's just go ahead and go to this URL. I'll put links to all of these images in the YouTube description, so check that out. And we've got this first image. We'll click download and I'll just simply drag and drop it into this folder. So I've got 2 copies of that same image now in here. So I just wanted to show you how to download the images. So check the YouTube description and go ahead and download these 20 images that I've put in the description, or pick 20 different images. You don't have to use these ones. You can go to Unsplash. You can use photographs from a family holiday. You could use photographs from an event that you're doing for your business. Entirely your choice what images you use. So let's close this. Now I'm using the latest version of GIMP, which is GIMP 2.10 to do this work. So you need to make sure you download and install GIMP 2.10. If you've not done that, I'll put a link in the YouTube description showing you how to do that. In my previous tutorial, if you've been following me on YouTube, I showed you how to install the BIMP plugin for GIMP, which allows us to do batch processing. So you need to go ahead and download that plugin as well. It's very quick to download and install, but you need to make sure you download and install the BIMP plugin. So I'll put a link in the YouTube description showing you how to do that as well. And if you've been watching my YouTube channel, I showed you how to install the GIMP plugin as well. So we're going to use that to do some batch processing. So make sure you go ahead and install the GIMP plugin. So you need 3 things basically. You need the GIMP 2.10, you need the GIMP plugin, and you need the BIMP plugin. I'll put links to all of these 3 things showing you how to install all of them in the YouTube description if you don't already have them. So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and open up GIMP software. And if we look at this folder, right now we have these 20 pictures, and they range from size from 9 megabytes all the way down to 1.3, but these are still too large. We want to reduce the file sizes because they're way too big. So we're going to use the BIMP plugin to do this. So once you've installed the BIMP plugin, you can go to File and Batch Process, Batch Image Manipulation here. So we're going to click that and we'll get these options pop up, and it's going to say Add Images. We're going to click Add Images and Add Single Images here. And then I'm going to navigate to my desktop, go to this tutorial folder. Let's go to the tutorial here, and I'm going to click on the first image, hold down the Shift key, and then click on the last image to select all of these 20 pictures, and then click Add. Now the software is asking me for the output folder. So if I click on this, let's just show you in here. So I've got this folder I've made, just an empty folder called Resize. So after I've resized the images, I'm going to store them in this folder here. So let's go back to this plugin. And we want to output folder. We're going to click here and we're going to click on that resize folder. So all the batched images or the processed images will be stored in this directory. Let's click OK, and we're going to click on the add button at the top here and click resize here. And after we click resize, we're going to select this option, set exact size in pixels. And it says for both dimensions. We don't want to do that. We want to do it for the width only, but we want to preserve the aspect ratio. And we're going to set the width to 900 and then click OK. Then we're going to click the apply button and let's let this software go and do its job. So it'll take a few seconds to edit each one of these images and resize them so that all of them are exactly 900 pixels wide, but the heights will fluctuate because it's going to preserve the aspect ratio. So we'll check this in a second and see what's happened. Okay, that's all done, so we can close this, minimize this, and we'll go into this folder, and let's just put this on the right hand side. I'm going to open this folder in a new window, and we can see, for example, if we look at this GD Gray image, if we find that in here, GD Gray, where is it? this one is 1.76, and then over here it's 73 kilobytes. So we've basically reduced the file sizes. We've resized them to get the file sizes smaller, so when we use the GIMP plugin to do batch processing, it's going to batch process them much quicker. Trying to batch process these images at this size will just take way too long. It will be a cumbersome job, so that's why we're resizing them. So let's close this and close this. Let's go ahead and open up GIMP software, and we're going to go to File, Open as Layers. And then inside of here, we're going to go to the resize folder, and we're going to click on the first picture and then click on the last picture here. So we're going to select all 20 images, and then we're going to click open. And GIMP is going to open each one of these on a separate layer. Okay, cool. So we've got all 20 images open, each one on its own layer. So we're going to click on the first image, go to Filter, GIMP Plugin here. So remember, I'll put a link in the YouTube description if you haven't already installed this. So we'll click on the plugin, and we'll go to the frames here, frames, and we're going to select Polaroid. And for the angle, we're going to set it to 0. Let's set the angle to 0. So it's just going to be a flat Polaroid image like this. And the frame size we're going to leave at 10, the bottom we're going to leave at 20. We're not going to do any sort of, we're just going to leave pretty much everything as default. You can see the settings here, you can change them if yours are slightly different. But the main thing is to set the angle to 0. And then in here, import layers, we're going to select all layers. And then the output mode, we're going to select new active layer here, new active layers, like this. And then we're going to click apply. So this will take a few seconds for it to go and edit all of those images and turn them into this Polaroid style. Okay, that's done, so we can click OK. Now, let's just zoom out here. I'm going to use the Control key and use the middle mouse button or middle mouse wheel to zoom out a little bit. And what we want to do is start from this top layer and count down 20. So we're going to click on the top layer and use the arrow key on our keyboard, the down arrow. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So we're going to count 20 layers down, and then this 21 layer, we're going to click on it and delete it. So we'll click on this layer and hit the delete button here. And we're just going to keep deleting all the layers below until we get down to the very last one here. We're going to make sure we delete this one, and then we should be good to go. Now we've got 20 layers in here. We should have all the images in here. Let's just see. In fact, we need to delete. If we look at the first one, the first one's called GD Grey, and then we've got GD Grey here. So we need to get rid of this one as well. And then if we go to the top, we've got a Ramadan here, and then we've got this Ramadan here. So we delete that one. So now we've got exactly the right layers. Basically, we've deleted all the duplicates or all the layers that we're not really going to be using in here. So now we've got all the Polaroid images. And what we want to do, there's a few different ways to do this, but we want to kind of let's have a little think about this. There's a few different ways to do this. So let's see. Maybe what we'll do, we could let's go to File, Save As first, and we'll go back to this directory. I'm going to call this new. I'm going to save it as a GIMP file and call it new Polaroid-01 and save this. Now we could use the array function to lay these all out, and then we can manipulate them. It might be worth doing it that way, but we could do this manually as well. I think we do it manually because this is a kind of a better way to learn how to do this. So what we'll do is go to the very bottom layer here, and we're going to click new layer, create new layer, and in this layer we're going to set it to 1920 by 1080 like this, and click OK. So we can see this new layer here, this one here, and what we want to do is go to the let's go to so make sure this bottom layer is selected, go to image canvas size, and we want to set this to 1920 by 1080 as well. let's click resize, width 1920, and then this size here. So just set it 1920 by 1080 for the canvas size and click resize. So we're going to resize that, and we'll have all our images sitting below. All of our images are going to be sitting below. So let's go to the very top image, or in fact let's go to the very bottom image, which is this one here, right? This one right here. We'll click on the move tool. So let's get used to using some shortcuts. So the first shortcut we're going to learn is M. So when we press M on our keyboard, the letter M, that allows us to move the object or move the image. And then we're going to press Shift S to scale. So this is the scale tool. When you hover over it, it says Shift and S. Right, you can see that at the end. So we'll click on this. We press M to move it, then Shift and S to resize, and then we're going to resize this to around this size, pretty small. And then we're going to click scale, and then we're going to press M again and move this to the canvas somewhere around here. And then we're going to click on the image here, this one right above it, this one right here on the layer. And we've already got the move tool selected, so we can move it. Press Shift S to scale, and we're going to scale this down to around this size, something like this. We want them to be quite small because we've got quite a lot of images to work with. We'll click scale, and then we'll press M to move it, and we'll move it to the opposite sort of side around here, something like here. It should be fine. And then we'll move up one layer. So we're going to go to this one here. We'll press we'll just drag it because we've already got the move tool selected. Shift and S to scale. We're going to scale this one down to around this sort of size, and we'll press scale here. And then this time we'll press Shift and R, and Shift R is to rotate here. Shift and R is to rotate. So let's press Shift R, and then we can rotate this one around and click rotate, then press M and drag it so that it sits here somewhere like this, overlaps like this. And then we'll click on the next one, and you can see it's just down here, so we can click and drag it up, and then we'll press Shift S to scale that one, and we'll scale it a little bit larger than this image here, and we'll click scale and then press M to move, and we're going to move it here so it overlaps like this. But what we'll do with that layer is we'll click on it, and we're going to move it down a few layers. Well, let's move it so it kind of sits in between these two layers like this, which kind of overlap a little bit, and we might rotate it. So let's press Shift R to rotate, and we'll rotate it maybe slightly this way like this, and click rotate. So we're just stacking, like, you can imagine if you threw all these Polaroids on your table and they just sort of randomly fell like this, right, onto the table, something like this. So then let's go to the next one, which is this one here. And when I click on it, I can't actually see it. Can you see it's not highlighting? So I need to use the control key and the mouse wheel to zoom out, and I can see it's down here. So let's press M to move it, and we'll move it up to here. And then we can use the control key and the mouse wheel to zoom back in. And this one we're going to press Shift S to scale, and let's scale that down a little bit to around this size. And then we'll click the scale button, press M to move it, and we're going to move it to here. And we want this little photo to sit on top, right? So let's move it to around here, and then we'll click on this image here, and we'll move it down one so it sits here, and we just want it to kind of overlap like this. We want it to be a bit random like this. And let's go to the next image, which is this one here, James. And let's zoom out a little bit. It's right down here. Let's press M to move it. We'll drag it up. Let's zoom back in on this image. We'll press Shift S to scale it. We're going to scale it down to around, pretty small, around this size. And then we'll click scale and then press M to move it. And we're going to move it so it overlaps here somewhere, like around here. Then we'll go to the next picture. Use the control and the mouse wheel to zoom out. We'll press M to move it. We'll zoom back in. Let's press Shift S to scale it. I'm going to scale this one to around this size, and then click scale, and then we're going to rotate this one, right? So we're going to rotate it this direction. So let's press Shift R, and we'll rotate it around this way. Click rotate, and then press M and move it. Let's move it to here, and we're going to bring this one down so it sits behind this layer. So let's click it and move it down so it sits like this, something like this. And let's go to the next picture, which is this one here, Jacob. Let's zoom out. So they're all getting rendered out down here, so we need to move them. So let's press M to move, drag it up. And this one, we're going to press Shift S to scale it. We'll scale it down, and we're going to rotate this one as well. So let's scale it. Let's press Shift R to rotate. We'll rotate it this way, and then press M to move it, and we're going to move it to somewhere like here, something like this. I think it's fine like that. Let's click on the next one, Jordan. Let's press Control S to save. Use the Control key and the mouse wheel to zoom out, and we'll press M to move. Then we'll grab this and move it up here. We'll press Shift S to scale it, and we'll scale it down. We'll click. Instead of clicking this scale button, you can just hit the Enter key. You can hit the Enter key or click the scale button. Let's press Shift R to rotate it. We'll rotate it around something like here, and then we'll press M to move it, and we'll move it over to here like this. And let's go to the next image, Control and the mouse wheel to zoom out. Let's grab this, so let's press M, drag it up. This is quite a tall image, so what we'll do is Shift S to scale it. We're going to scale it to, want it to be slightly wider than this one. Let's click scale and then M to move it, and we're going to move it so it sits over like this, something like this. And again, you can do what you want here, right? So we'll click on this one called Ken, and then we'll zoom out, and that's right down here. So let's press M to move it. Let's drag it up, and then we'll press Shift S to scale. We're going to scale this one down, and we will then press in fact, we might leave it like around here, and what we'll do is press M to move it. We're going to overlap it like this, but I want it to be sitting underneath one of these. So let's click on it and let's move it down the layer stack to around here, something like this. It's kind of sticking out like this. Let's go to the next one, which will be this one. Let's zoom out and see where it is. It's right down here. We'll drag it up. You could, in theory, just click on all of these and drag them all up, but we'll just do them one at a time. Kind of like doing it this way. Let's press S to scale, Shift S to scale, Shift and S, and let's drag this one to here. Let's press R to rotate, Shift R to rotate, and then rotate it around. In fact, let's Shift R, let's rotate it around this way, and then let's press M to move it. We're going to move it to like here. In fact, let's move it over to this side around here, because these two similar colors, right? So let's grab that layer and let's move it down to around here, and we'll drag it to fill this gap here somewhere like this. Then let's zoom out. So this one's done. This Leonardo, this one here we need to move, right? So let's press M to move it. We might click on this one and then just move these a bit closer. Can you see all of these? Let's just move them a bit closer to the layer stack at the top here. Then we don't have to come all the way down here to find them and move them up. So now they're all quite close. Even though they're off the canvas, they're all quite close to it. That will make our life a little bit easier when we're resizing all of these. So let's click this one, press Shift S to resize it. When you scale it, Shift S to scale, you can scale it by the handles, but you can also click in the middle here to move it into position as well. You can do kind of both actions. You can move it and scale it at the same time. So let's scale this, and then let's click on this one, and let's move it down the layer stack a little bit to somewhere like here. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Scale that. Let's click on the move tool, and we'll drag it across a little bit here. Then we'll click on this one. Is this the next one? Yep, this one here. Let's drag this in. Let's press Shift S to scale it. And this one I want to be quite big, right? But I want to rotate it as well. So let's make it quite large. We've only got 4 left, right? So let's go to scale. Let's press Shift R to rotate, and we'll rotate it. And then we can drag in here to like move it around if we really want to, but that's kind of the center point, right, of the rotation. Let's click rotate. Let's press M to move, and we'll move it around here. And then let's move it down the layer stack a little bit to like here, so it's kind of sticking out like this. Then we've got this one here. Let's move this in. Let's press Shift S to scale. This one I want quite large, around this sort of size. And we're going to drag it to around here so it fills quite a lot of the space. We don't want it to be too big. Let's make it a bit smaller. Something like this. And then we'll click scale, and then we're going to move that down the layer stack. So let's move it down. Let's move it up. Somewhere like here would be good. I think let's grab the move tool. Let's move it to around here. I want a few gaps showing through here as well, like a few gaps. So this one here, let's find that. This image right here, let's move it so there's a little gap kind of showing in here. We'll slightly move them around afterwards just to get a few gaps in between, because when we put our wood grain in the background, we kind of want them sort of some grain to be showing through the edges a little bit, right? But we'll sort that out afterwards. So this one here, we've only got 2 images left. So let's click this one. Let's move it. Let's press. Let's see what it looks like actually. So maybe this one will rotate it so that it's quite a tall image. So let's rotate this so it sits maybe on the length a bit more. So what we could do is click on the rotate tool. Let's click on the image and let's set it to 90, I think. Let's try 90, rotate. So that's rotated around horizontal, but we've got quite a big white gap on the side. It doesn't matter really, to be fair. Let's think about that. Let's scale it first. So press Shift S and we'll scale it down. And really I want that that white side to be on the other side. So let's click scale. And then let's press Shift R to rotate again, and we'll rotate it 180 degrees. So now that white side is on this side, and then we'll press M to move it, and we'll move it over to here. Let's get it to overlap somewhere like here, and then we'll move that down the layer stack. So this other image sits over the top of it like this. I think we look okay, and we've got 1 image left right at the top, this one. So let's move that in. Let's press Shift S to scale it. We'll scale that one down. We're going to fit that in here somewhere. So let's just move it to somewhere like here, and let's rotate it a little bit. So let's scale it first. Press Shift R to rotate. We'll rotate it around this way a little bit. And let's rotate that to something like this. And then press M to move it. And we'll move it so it sits like around here. We rotate it a bit too much. Let's press Shift R. Let's rotate it around a little bit more, and then press M to move it. We want to move it like here, and then maybe let's see where it sits in this stack. Maybe we'll have it sitting and kind of popping out. Let's say around here, like this. Okay. So I think this is pretty good. Let's go to File, Save. We've got a few gaps in there. We could add a few more. Maybe this picture here, we can find this one here. So all we do is click on the very top one and then use the down arrow on our keyboard, and it will get highlighted like this. And then just use the move tool. You can slightly move it around, try and get more gaps in between. You don't have to have them gaps, but I think it will look a bit better. This one here I want to move as well. So let's click on the down arrows and we'll move this one across slightly. So like around here. I want to randomize it a little bit here, right? So we'll click on the top one. I want to move this bottom one down here. Let's find out where it is. Here it is. Just want to shift it down a little bit. So something like this I think is going to look pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. So let's go to File, Save. And what we would do is move our mouse. Let's move right down to the bottom layer. I think we've got one here missing. So we've still got one layer here that's not been used. So let's move the upper layer. Let's move it up one. This one's kind of a rogue. So in fact, let's move it right to the top. So let's use the up arrow here. Let's move it all the way to the top layer. So this is right at the top. Let's press Shift S to scale it. Let's scale it down to something like this. Let's press Shift R to rotate. Let's rotate it this way. Rotate. And then let's press M to move it, and we'll just move it right here like this. So that's all of the layers done now. Let's go to File, Save, And let's minimize this a minute. Let's go into this directory, and in this directory I've got this folder with wood background in there, right? So I'll put a link in the YouTube description to download this particular image, but I want to kind of download a few different ones. So let's go to Unsplash, and we'll just type in wood here, W-O-D, wood. Now this is the one that I just downloaded, right? So let's try a few other ones. Let's try maybe something like let's see, kind of like this blue one, right? So let's click on the blue one. I'll put a link to that in the YouTube description as well, so you go to download these. So let's click download here. Let's drag that into this folder. So we've got two. Let's download one more, and then you can go ahead and download as many as you like of these wood grains. It doesn't have to be wood, it could be something completely different, right? It could be any sort of background. So you could go to Unsplash. Let's go to the very top, and you could click on something like patterns, for example, and then we could download this one, for example. So let's try that as well. Let's click on it, download, and we'll drag and drop that one. So I've got 3 different backgrounds. That's enough for me in this example. I'll leave you to experiment and download different backgrounds yourself, and then I'll show you how you can add them to this collage as well. So let me just make a little note. So we've got 3 different backgrounds. Let's close this down. Let's just drag this to the side. Let's go to GIMP, and all we want to do is go to the very bottom layer, this layer, it's called layer here, and we're just going to drag and drop the picture. Let's in fact do the blue. Let's do the brown one first. Let's drag and drop that into GIMP, and it will become its own layer. So this layer here with the grey background, we don't need it anymore, so we can just drag that down one so it sits underneath. We can leave it, that's fine, but you can see we've got this wood grain in the background now. But really we want to resize it. This yellow box represents the actual size of the wood image. So let's resize that. So let's click on the resize tool, or let's use the shortcuts we learned, right? So we can just click on this wood grain, Shift S to scale, but this time we're going to set the opacity to 50%. So when we set the opacity to 50%, as we're scaling it, we can see how far we need to scale. And we want to leave a gap around the edge, right? We don't want to scale too far in. We want to leave it to around something like around here would be very good. Let's click scale, and then we can set the opacity all the way back to 100. And let's go to File, Save, and then go to File, Export As, and we're going to export it. Let's go to let's create a new folder. So we'll create a new folder, and we'll call this Final Images, and inside this Final Images folder we just created, we're going to select the file type and save it as a JPEG, and we'll just call it new Polaroid 01.jpg. That's fine. Let's click export, and we'll compress it at 90% and click export. So that's one done, and let's go back to our folder here. Let's drag the next image in, the blue background, and all we will do is hide the wood grain one. So let's hide this top one, and now we can see the blue one behind it, and it kind of looks nice at that sort of size, but let's resize it. So let's press Shift S, let's set the opacity to 50%, let's scale it in, and let's see what it looks like when it's all scaled in. Let's click scale, set the opacity all the way back up to 100. You can see, look, we scaled it too far, we're seeing grey down the edge now. So what we'll do is press Control Z one more time to undo. Then we'll press Shift S, and we'll be a bit more careful when we scale it. We want to scale it and leave a gap down the side here. Okay, something like this. So we'll click scale, and then we can set the opacity back up to 100. And this will be our one with a blue sort of wood grain background. I kind of like this as well. But let's go to File, Save, File, Export As, and this time we'll label it Polaroid Image -02. Let's click Export, and then click export one more time. So we've got 2 versions now, and let's do that final version, which was the colored one, right? So let's drag that into GIMP, and then what we'll do is we can hide this purple or this blue one. Let's drag this one up. We should really drag it to the bottom layer here. So we've got the wood, the blue one, and now we've got this sort of colored background. Let's press Shift S, let's set the opacity to 50%. Let's resize to this sort of size here and leave a gap down the edges. Let's click scale, set the opacity all the way back up to the top. Let's set that to 100%. And now we've got this one with like these sort of, what would you call them, tiles or something. Let's go to File, Save, File, Export as version 3. And let's click Export. And let's click Export. Let's go to File, Save. Now we can close down GIMP. Let's close it down. And then in that folder, so we created this final images. So we remember in GIMP we created that folder called final images, and inside here we've got all 3 examples. So let's open this one. We can see this example, we've got this one here, and then we've got finally this one here. And out of the 3, I kind of like the one with the blue. The wood grain one looks pretty cool as well, but I kind of like the blue color. So let's go to my desk. Let's try something out, right? So let's click on this one, the middle one. Let's right click and let's do set as background. So now I can use that as my desktop background because we created the image at 1920 by 1080, and this could have been pictures of an event. You could share this on social media. Imagine you did some big event and you've got loads of pictures of all your staff or all the people that attend your event. This could be of a photo of your family holiday, could be of your kids, could be of anything you possibly want it to be. Could be some, you know, photography that you're doing. Maybe you're learning photography, you want to create this collage and share it on social media. You can see that we left the gaps in between so the wood shows through. So that is pretty much the end of this tutorial. Let me go ahead and set my desktop back to what it was before. So that's back to my original desktop background. Inside the folder here we've got the final images. Let's have a quick look one more time. We've got the wood grain version, we've got the wood grain with the sort of blue, and then we've got the one with the shells, right? Let's close this. Let's close this down. That's the end of this tutorial. It was quite a long one, quite a lot to explain, but we actually learned some shortcuts in this tutorial. So it wasn't really just about creating this Polaroid. It was really about learning those shortcuts. Shift S to scale, Shift R to rotate, and then using the M to move. Right, so those are 3 key shortcuts that we can use, but we also used the BIMP plugin to do the batch processing at the beginning, to resize all the images quickly, and then we used the GIMP plugin or the Gimp plugin to create that Polaroid effect. So imagine if you had to create that Polaroid effect on 20 images, it would take you quite some time, but with the Gimp plugin we can do that within a few seconds. So that's the end of this tutorial. I hope you find it useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next DCP web tutorial.